One of the most popular debates among Gilmore Girls fans is whether you're Team Dean, Team Jess, or Team Logan. But if there's one thing fans can collectively agree on, it's that Lorelai belongs to Team none of the above. Although the two leading ladies share a very close bond, Lorelai was never fond of any of Rory's serious boyfriends, and a fan theory explains why. There's no denying that each of Rory's boyfriends shares some similarities with Lorelai's past relationships and the life she fled. There's also no denying that Lorelai always wanted better for her daughter, encouraging her to focus on school and achieve everything she wasn't able to. According to this theory, Lorelai saw each of Rory's boyfriends as a step closer to history repeating itself, a slow slide toward the life she had fought so hard to escape. Dean and Christopher don't have a whole lot in common. Dean comes from a working-class family, working part-time and holding odd jobs to support his parents. Meanwhile, Christopher had practically everything handed to him and was the quintessential rich kid turned spoiled adult. However, that's not to say the two don't share some similarities, especially when it comes to their respective relationships with the Gilmore Girls. Of all of Rory's relationships, Dean was the one Lorelai liked the most, at least at first. Part of that affection stemmed from how much he reminded her of a young version of Chris, even pointing out their physical similarities and rooting for Rory and Dean to have the perfect teenage romance she had never had. But once Dean and Rory slept together while he was still married to Lindsay, Lorelai began to see the same flaws in Dean that she saw in Chris. Even though she and Chris broke up soon after Rory was born, Lorelai never completely let go of her feelings for him, no matter how much she tried to deny it. When Chris briefly appeared to have his life in order and wanted to reunite at the end of Season 2, Lorelai allowed herself to believe things could finally be different, only for him to return to Sherry, leaving her heartbroken again. So when Rory tried to defend her affair with Dean by saying, "He's Dean, my Dean," it hit too close to home. The excuse paralleled Lorelai's pattern of clinging to Chris, no matter how many times it fell apart. By the time Dean left Lindsay and got back together with Rory, Lorelai's support was gone. She wanted Rory to focus on building her own life at Yale, just as she had once fought to create her own path after Rory's birth. To Lorelai, being with Christopher again would have meant sliding back into a past she had outgrown, and she recognized that Dean was doing the same thing to Rory in Season 5. From the moment they met, Lorelai made it clear she felt nothing but detest for Jess. This is understandable. He was rude to her during their chat on the porch, snuck out early from the dinner party, and treated Luke like dirt. So, when he and Rory began hanging out and getting closer, it's only natural that she would be nervous about their growing bond. However, the theory suggests that Lorelai's dislike of Jess runs deeper than just concern over his bad boy tendencies. She sees her younger self in him. The neglect, the desire to escape, and the immaturity all hit a little too close to home. And no matter how much she loves Rory and cherishes the life they've built together, the last thing Lorelai wants is for her daughter to repeat her own mistakes and end up on the same path and pregnant at 16. If Jess and Rory hadn't formed such a quick connection, and Lorelai had merely viewed him as Luke's troublesome nephew, she might have given him more leeway. But having lived through the chaos of teenage rebellion firsthand, she can't ignore the risk Jess poses, and she simply doesn't trust his influence over Rory. It's no secret that Lorelai has always resented the wealthy, upper-class world she was born into, and one of her biggest goals as a mother was to shield Rory from being drawn into it. She constantly balances letting Rory have a relationship with her grandparents while keeping her level-headed, but that balance is tested more than ever when Logan Huntsberger enters the scene. Even more privileged than the Gilmores, Logan enjoys the perks of his wealth, and Rory can't help but be influenced by it. While she's benefited from being Richard and Emily's granddaughter since the Friday night dinners, she's often downplayed it out of loyalty to her mother. With Logan, however, she indulges in that lifestyle more openly, which drives Lorelai crazy. While some might argue that Lorelai's insistence that Rory reject both her grandparents and the Huntsbergers' world is overly controlling, she isn't wrong that Logan carries a corrupting influence. Before dating him, Rory never would have considered something as reckless as stealing a yacht, but being exposed to Logan's consequence-free mischief changes her perspective. Their relationship also plays a role in Rory's decision to leave Yale. Logan encourages her indulgence, And Rory knows she could always fall back on the safety net her grandparents provide, making it easier for her to drift away from responsibility. Lorelai eventually accepts Logan's presence in Rory's life when it becomes clear he's not going anywhere, and that Rory is capable of regaining her focus and returning to Yale.